My name is Paul Jack. I'm co-owner of Speakeasy Art Gallery, along with my business partner, Michael Paquette. Before opening the gallery, I started curating shows at alternate venues. I was working with a promoter, and he let me put up some work that that I wanted to show while bands were playing and things like that. And from there, then I met Mike, and Mike was actually in one of those shows, and then he saw this space, and we decided to go for it and kind of show the style of artwork that we like. I mean, that's what kind of Speakeasy is about. It's one about being comfortable, the idea of speaking easy, and then, the underground feel to the artwork that we were showing. And also, at the time, when I was doing it in bars and stuff, the actual locations where we were showing. Industrial evolution came about in a lot of ways just from the different artists that I was inspired by that we've come across in the past 2 years. And we thought it would be a really interesting thing to incorporate those artists into one show who used materials that were non-traditional. One artist that really influenced me that we've had shown in the past was Nishi from Japan. His stuff was really, really cool, and I liked that he did his work on wood. And being a printmaker, I thought that would be really cool to kind of go away from paper and canvas and to actually work on different surfaces, and it would just make the work a little more interesting. I started seeing other artists kind of working in this way, incorporating these found objects and these alternate things, these alternate processes of working, which I found really, really interesting and exciting. I've been showing for about probably about 10 years. I graduated art school in '98, and been showing pretty consistently since then. And we've had the gallery open for about 2 years now. I always liked art that was just non-traditional, that wasn't the norm. So as a printmaker, I wanted to move away from paper, and as a painter, I wanted to move away from canvas. I just wanted something that was a little more exciting and also organic. I like the idea of working on woods and carving into woods, and changing the colors of it and just manipulating it, and then incorporating stuff that, like, found materials. I use sawdust from stuff that I've carved out and incorporate that into the work now. And I really enjoy that. I think it has a much more interesting feel, and like I said, more of an organic feel to it. My process for the work that's going to be in this show starts with this kind of style, which is what I was doing before what I'm doing now, and I kind of called this the Doodle series. And I just felt that for a lot of people, their first impulse in art, in drawing, in life in general, you put a drawing implement in somebody's hand and their first reaction is to scribble. So I always thought it was kind of neat when you kind of looked up at a cloud and you could see something inside that. So I kind of took that scribble and tried to construct it, see what I could find in there, see if I could find something interesting and pull it out and make it more visible. And then my newer work, it's kind of getting even more abstracted and not, finding those textures in the materials themselves. I use a lot of chipboard and, start carving and finding shapes in there and pulling it out, but being a little more abstract, maybe showing some form, but not really, like a figure or a face or anything like that, just working in a little more of an abstract way. For me, I am so excited about this show. This is probably, the show I've been wanting to do for, for the 2 years that we've been open. So I'm really excited about the artists who are in it, and it's an honor for me as a curator to work with them, and as an artist to show alongside them. It's phenomenal. And we had to be open for the 2 years that we were open to find all these artists and meet all these artists so that this show could happen. So for me, it's incredibly exciting, and I hope people come and check it out and enjoy it as much as I do.
My name is Dan Fenelon, and I'm a local New Jersey artist, and I've been exhibiting my work for about 25 years. I'm really into tribal art, and I want to create something that's kind of like what I call modern tribal art, So I thought a way of doing that would be to incorporate like everyday objects into my work, and something that you would see, like, you know, toys, which I do a lot of, but then to kind of give them a tribal element or a tribal life to them, to turn them into these kind of like urban kachina dolls that I do, you know. So it was like the fusion of modern and tribal together, you know, and I thought that would be a good way to do that by using like ordinary everyday materials. Well, what's happened is, you know, I feel like I'm kind of getting a little tired of my own work, you know, and you know, I have like kind of an audience of people who know me and know what I do, and you know, I've had the past couple of shows, you know, you do shows and sometimes you got to slip in the same work into several shows, you know, and you're showing at different galleries, and you know, I just decided this time I really want to do something that's completely different than people have seen before. So one of the elements I really pulled out of my old work was I didn't do much color in the new work. You know, it's like very monochromatic, you know. And then I really started to get more influenced by the found object thing. It's wonderful and frustrating in the same sentence, you know. It's like I'm doing the same old thing and it's just becoming rote, and it's like I don't feel it in my heart anymore. Then you do something new and it's frustrating because it's not as good as your old stuff, and you have to experiment and you have to force yourself to change, and then you get to a place where it is becoming something, you know, and then it's wonderful again, you know, and that's that feeling of up and down, you know, like you have to challenge yourself, you know. That's the only way you can grow as an artist, you know, but it's frustrating as hell to challenge yourself.
My name is Chris Mays, and I've been showing my work for about 2 years now, ever since I graduated from Salve Regina University. I use the materials that I do because the porcelain I find is very fluid when I'm sculpting my pieces, and it adds a level of permanence that I really find alluring. I like to use the metal because it in some ways decides what the porcelain form is ultimately going to be in the end, and I find it challenging to sort of take these various hunks of metal and sort of breathe new life into them by sculpting these porcelain figures. My process is very intuitive when I'm sculpting these works. Like I said, I like to find the metal and sort of let that determine the form that eventually comes out. I very rarely work from a sketchbook. I usually will do sketches halfway through or after. I find that sort of working intuitively will not limit me. I feel like once it's down on paper, it very much keeps the idea confined, and I like it to be ever changing, because once I get halfway into something, I want to be able to completely evolve it. The work for this show is I guess the next step in the evolution of what I want to ultimately do. I feel that my work has evolved in both fluidity and form. I think that my technical ability has improved from the first series of these works that I've done. As far as the sculpting goes, my familiarity with the porcelain has grown quite a bit. And I also want to experiment more with surface, texture, different glaze treatments, things like that. One of my major influences is Auguste Rodin, because of his ability to capture so much power and emotion in his forms through the exaggeration of form, and that's really what I'm after, is to sort of capture this really powerful sort of effigy kind of thing. Something I look to Mark Rothko and his manifesto for, which is, you know, feelings of doom and, you know, power and, you know, sadness, whatever, just, you know, overarching human emotions that are very powerful, and I try to encapsulate that in my work. And really what I look to is a lot of human I guess mental mires, social hang-ups, things like that, different psychoses that people have that you know, ultimately either inhibit them or improve them in some way. It doesn't always necessarily have to be something dark, but I kind of like that idea of riding the line between like a dark and gruesome and just sort of like this beautiful, you know, very fluid deity sort of form. And I think that that's really what I try to encompass in all of my work, is that.
My name is Jenny Lombardi, and I've exhibited probably for the past 2.5 years, 2 years, in school and now outside of school. I'm drawn to the materials that I use actually on kind of a fluke, because I was a painting major and then I decided to take a ceramics course. And through that, just playing with clay, I was able to get exactly what I use in my paintings. I was able to actually sculpt my 2D figures in the 3-dimensional realm. So through that, I just started experimenting with more and more styles, I guess, and details, and trying to make them as grotesque or just abstracted as possible. So I pretty much just went outside of my box and became a ceramicist instead of a painter. The process I use for each piece is I actually do keep a sketchbook, but usually my sketchbook ideas are just for fun. They're not at all with the premise of actually sculpting. If I like the sketch enough, I'll actually attack it with clay, and I will, depending on the size of the piece that I decide to do, I will either sculpt it in multiple pieces or just do one. I'll fire it, and once it's been fired twice, then I'll start assembling it. And with bigger ones like this one, I'll have the head or the legs separate, and then I'll glue them together with epoxy, then Bondo it, then fiberglass it, and I'll actually sculpt with the Bondo and the fiberglass in order to get the form that I want, and I'll actually add extra details. And then eventually I will paint them with acrylic paint. I've always been kind of drawn to like the weird and abstract and the bizarre. I really like Alex Party's work. He's a younger artist. And Beth Powner Stitcher is actually a sculptor that I really like, because she does these really detailed, expressive rabbits and other animal forms with human quality, and that's actually what I exhibit in my work, is human emotion, whether it's anger, or sadness, or happiness, so I'll just go with that.
My name's Paul Gordon, and this is actually my first exhibit. I grew up surrounded by a shop fitting workshop of my father, so I had carte blanche to use all sorts of materials. I was generally in charge of smashing and breaking things. And I think that was because I wasn't good enough to be a shop fitter like my father and my brother. So when I was smashing and breaking up all these things, I would constantly just see shapes and forms, and they just really, you know, gave me the inspiration to put these things together and turn them into sculptures, and I've been doing so ever since. Generally, it's the materials tend to speak to me and build the thing almost by itself. I find, like, I'll, you know, a few times I'll have ideas and stuff, but generally the texture and the feel, I get a lot of pleasure out of symmetry and patterns, as well as, you know, natural curves and stuff, and just like sort of mixing the two together. So my new work is based on the same process of just found materials, construction materials, and bringing them together and see how they work together, the textures and the feel of them, and just trying to mold them into something that's bigger than the piece itself, sort of suggesting continuation of patterns and curves and stuff. I'm very excited about being in this exhibition with so many talented artists. It's very exciting. Yeah.